This lesson is on inverses of rational numbers. A rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. The law of inverses says that every rational number can be multiplied by its inverse to get the number 1. For example, 6 times 1/6 gives you 1. 4 times 1/4 gives you 1. 3 times 1/3 gives you 1. Now it works the other way around as well. 1/6 is a rational number and it has an inverse, and that inverse is 6, or 6 over 1. So that if you multiply them, you get 1. Similarly, the inverse of 1/5 is simply 5 over 1. Sometimes we just call that 5. So that when you multiply them, you get 1. 1/4. What do you suppose the inverse of 1/4 is? It's 4. Because 1/4 times 4 equals 1. I didn't bother to put the 1 down here, but you can put it there, because 4 over 1 is the same as 4. But suppose you have a number like 2/3. What do you multiply that by to get 1? The answer is 3/2. Because 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 2 is 6, so you would get 6 over 6, and that's the same as 1. Suppose it was 4/5. The inverse of that would be 5/4, so that you get 1, because 5 times 4 is 20, and down here 5 times 4 there is 20, and that's the same as 1. You could even generalize and say if you had some number x and it was divided by some other number y, the inverse of that would be y over x. Because when you multiply, you'd get xy in the numerator, that's x times y, and down in the denominator you get y times x. And that really is the same as 1, because the numerator of the fraction is the same as the denominator. When that happens, the answer is always 1. You can use this fact to help figure out how to divide one fraction by another. The trick is to multiply the top of the fraction and the bottom of the fraction by the same number, which won't change the value of the fraction when you do that, but choose a number that will make the denominator turn into a 1. So in this case, we want to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, which is the reciprocal or the inverse of 2/3. So we'll multiply the top and the bottom by 3/2. And that'll make the denominator become 1, because we have a number 2/3 multiplied times its inverse, sometimes called its reciprocal. And when you multiply those two out, you always get 1. But so now what we do here is we multiply 3 times 3, and we get 9. And we multiply 4 times 2, that's these two numbers here, and we get 8. So the answer is 9/8, or 9/8 over 1. You've probably heard somebody say you can solve this same problem by inverting the denominator, that's this number down here, and multiplying. Well, what are they saying when they do that? They say that's the same as 3/4 times the inversion of this, which is 3/2. Well, you see what they really did was they multiplied the bottom 2/3 by 3/2 as well, but that came out to be 1. So they didn't write the 1 down. That's kind of a shortcut way of doing what we just did on the previous slide. But what you're really doing is multiplying top and bottom of the fraction by the inverse of the denominator. This turns out to be 1, and this turns out to be 9/8. So that's the answer that you get. But people usually leave off the 1, and they just write the answer as 9/8. Let's take an example problem and see if you can work it out yourself. Suppose you had the fraction 7/8, and you were supposed to divide that by 1/8. See if you can figure out how to multiply the numerator and the denominator, that's the numerator here, and the denominator here, by the same number to make the bottom number, the denominator, 1. Okay, what number do you need to multiply by? Right here and right here. We'll have the answer, the correct answer, on the next slide. The correct answer is you need to multiply both top and bottom of this fraction here, this big fraction, it's a fraction of fractions, by 8, because this 8 multiplied times that 1/8 will give you 1. And if you multiply the top of the fraction by 8 as well, then you'll get 8 times 7/8, which is 56/8. And you can reduce that because 8 goes into 56 7 times. So the answer comes out to be 7. To review then, we learned in this lesson that every rational number, that's every number that can be expressed as a fraction, every rational number has another number associated with it called an inverse. And the inverse multiplied times the original number always comes out to be 1. And we saw that that fact can be used in dividing one fraction by another. We multiply the denominator by its inverse to turn the denominator into 1.